प्रीत्यै कीर्त्यै श्रीलक्ष्मी नमः। प्रीत्यै कीर्त्यै श्रीलक्ष्मी नमः। धृत्यै तुष्ट्यै जयलक्ष्मी नमः। धृत्यै तुष्ट्यै जयलक्ष्मी नमः। प्रीत्यै कीर्त्यै श्रीलक्ष्मी नमः। धृत्यै तुष्ट्यै जयलक्ष्मी नमः। पुष्ट्यै शान्त्यै मेधाय नमः। पुष्ट्यै शान्त्यै मेधाय रमाश्रियायै वागीश्यै नमः। रमाश्रियायै वागीश्यै नमः। रमा ज्ञानाय नमः कान्तिरत्यै ज्ञानाय नमः कान्तिरत्यै ज्ञानाय नमः सरस्वत्यै गुणाय नमः सरस्वत्यै गुणाय नमः रमाश्रियायै वागीश्यै नमः रमाश्रियायै वागीश्यै नमः कान्तिरत्यै ज्ञानाय नमः कान्तिरत्यै ज्ञानाय नमः सरस्वत्यै गुणाय नमः सरस्वत्यै गुणाय नमः प्रीत्यै कीर्त्यै श्रीलक्ष्मी नमः प्रीत्यै कीर्त्यै श्रीलक्ष्मी नमः धृत्यै तुष्ट्यै जयलक्ष्मी नमः पुष्ट्यै शान्त्यै मेधाय नमः पुष्ट्यै शान्त्यै मेधाय नमः श्रीलक्ष्मी नमः जयलक्ष्मी नमः मेधाय नमः वागीश्यै नमः ज्ञानाय नमः गुणाय नमः ज्ञानाय नमः गुणाय नमः प्रीत्यै कीर्त्यै श्रीलक्ष्मी नमः श्रीलक्ष्मी नमः श्रीलक्ष्मी नमः श्रीलक्ष्मी नमः सर्वविद्यास्वरूपाय लक्ष्मी संश्लिष्टवक्षसे मधुपासनलक्ष्याय हयग्रीवाय मङ्गलम् शङ्खचक्रमहामुद्रा पुस्तकाढ्यं चतुर्भुजम् सम्पूर्णचन्द्रसङ्काशम् हयग्रीवमुपास्महे हयग्रीवमुपास्महे ज्ञानानन्दमयं रामम् निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं तत्त्वविद्यानां विश्वगुरुं प्रणम्य वेदान्तशास्त्र श्रवणालसानां बोधाय कुर्वे किमपि प्रबन्धम् बोधाय कुर्वे किमपि प्रबन्धम् श्रीमन्हयग्रीव पदारविन्द कारुण्यमानन्द रसप्रसङ्गा मन्दाशयोद्धारण बद्धबुद्धिः सिद्धान्तबिन्दुं विपुलीकरोमि सिद्धान्तबिन्दुं विपुलीकरोमि When carefully examined, one finds that all opinions are worthless. We carry in our mind loads and loads of opinions about anything and about everything. And these opinions seem to be very important to each one of us. We invest a lot in them and we give undue importance and value to them. And we don't put effort to truly examine them. What actually they are, how much work is in them, whether they have any work at all. So if we take some time and also the spiritual guidance from the scriptures and then proceed to investigate deeply into them, and then because of this thorough examination we come to find that these opinions are worthless. They are all there because of excessive pride that we have in them. That is why it is called as vanity. Opinion is a vanity. Why? Because we have excessive pride. And because of this thorough examination, we come to discover that these opinions do not truly have any importance or any intrinsic worth. There is no intrinsic worth. Actually, opinions are only mental activity. It's a mental activity. Mind is going on in its activity. Opinion is a mental activity. There are so many activities that the mind takes up. Opinion is one of them. And from where does these opinions stem forth? Opinions stem forth from reinforced positionalities. And it is these positionalities that bring on endless suffering. Now, what is this positionality? Erroneous, arbitrary presumption. mentally programmed structures are called positionalities. They are all programmed structures and they are erroneous and they are arbitrary presumptions. Opinions will manifest out of these mentally programmed structures. And once they manifest and we give them too much of importance without knowing that they are worthless, and they create a havoc in our lives. To let go of these mentally programmed structures and erroneous arbitrary presumptions is to silence the opinions. And to silence the opinions is to let go of these mentally programmed structures and erroneous arbitrary presumptions. We need to do one thing to get out of this entanglement with these opinions, to let go of these mentally programmed structures so that the opinions are silenced. Or put an effort to silence the opinions, not give any recognition to them by understanding that they are truly worthless. One of the masters says that this egos, I thought which is there, that I thought of the ego, it is extremely quick in interjecting itself as the supposed cause of all aspects of life. It is extremely quick in interjecting itself as the supposed cause of all aspects of life. It is very difficult to detect this trick, jugglery by the ego. Only those aspirants who out of their practice, spiritual practice, have attained certain state of mental purity and have gone deep into themselves can only recognize this during their meditation when they focus their entire attention on the origin or origination of the thought stream. Only in that intense meditation, when the focus is total and complete, because of their prior practices, it suddenly will not happen by attending a workshop on meditation or by reading a book. We may get some inspiration, but intense focus in meditation will not happen just like that. That is why prior practice is necessary. Prior good scriptural guidance is necessary for this practice to continue and become very effective. And then in that meditation, because of the intense focus in that meditation, one can place the total attention on the origination of the thought stream. So this great master says, the time lapse between an internally sensed occurrence, internally there are occurrences that are happening. The time gap between the internally sensed occurrence and the ego's claim to authorship. Something occurs inside. Because it is the world of Maya, because it is programmed by Maya, and because there is avidya, because there is adhyasa, whatever it is, because of the avidya and Maya and the individual or totality levels, things happen. Mind, intellect, memory, ego are products of Maya. It has programmed them, it has designed them, it has engineered them, it has marketed them, it has made them what they are. Except the life in them, the rest all is given by the Maya. Except the power in them to work, to do what they are supposed to do. Rest all is given by Maya. Only that power is given by Pratyagatma, which is not different from Paramatma. We have already seen since past 1 week. So, when these things occur internally, the internally sensed occurrences are there, and then the ego stakes its claim for authorship. In truth, it has not authored those things, but it stakes its claim. That is how it is programmed. The ego is programmed like that to claim everything as I am responsible for this. I am the doer, I am the enjoyer is not only at the gross level in relation to some external experiences, encounters, actions, reactions. It is actually much more deeper in the intrinsic level. Actually, the ego itself is a bluff. When it says, I am by myself, that itself is a bluff. Because it is a dependent, existent entity. Dependently existent entity. It cannot exist by itself. It has to depend upon the consciousness. It has to depend upon the Maya for its designing and programming. It has to depend upon the consciousness for enlivenment. So when it says I am, that I am also is a blunder, is a bluff. So it has to say I am, what I am is because of these supports which I have. But it never says. That is how it is programmed. So when there is intrinsic occurrence, and then ego immediately stakes claim to authorship. And this time gap is about 1 by 10,000th of a second. In that 1 by 10,000th of a second, after this intrinsic occurrence, in that time gap, it immediately stakes the claim. Generally, normal minds will never be able to know this until and unless there is a deep intense meditation. Suppose if because of this deep intense meditation this gap is discovered, then the ego loses its dominance. Because the real doer is not the ego, it is all because of the program of the Maya. The ego only takes this authorship, claim to this authorship. So it becomes obvious that actually one is a witness to all these intrinsic mental phenomena and not a cause of them or not a doer of them. In order to make us understand this, at least at the outer level, many of the spiritual masters have said everything is done by God. And then we get down, how can this be done by God? How can that be done by God? How can this be done by God? And then there are great other spiritual masters who have analyzed this and then said it is all the work of Maya. Otherwise it is all his Leela. More effectively it is his will. Or with a dissatisfactory note, my prarabdha. Or in a more frustrated note, my karma. Or in a more vengeful attitude, all because of somebody else. Or with some superimposed notion because of 9 planets. More intense to fight my neighbor. Whatever it is, something else. Why? Because actually in truth, that is the reality. It is not the ahankara. Ahankara is programmed only to stake claim. That is all. Actually it is the work of the creative power of Bhagavan, which is called as Maya. So this ego is only compilation of mentally programmed structures. That is all it is. Few of these mentally programmed structures put together is this ego. And how can we overcome it? Through intense, one-pointedly focused humility. If we become really humble, if we really bring in God, if we really bring in the power of God into our spiritual understanding, and then become humble and really this intensely focused one-pointed humility will make us overcome the tricks of this ego. We need to get out of the illusion that these thoughts are personal and they are valuable and they belong to us and they originate from the ego. All these are illusions. That these things originate from the ego, they are very valuable, they belong to us and they are personal. Like the body is influenced by so many things that are there in the Prakriti, and then only this body is a body. Because there are so many things that need to come into a program for creating the body. The five elements have combined. And before that, there is so much of process that undergoes in the creation. In order to make the five elements what they are, and then these five elements combine to make this body. And after that also there are so many things necessary to sustain the body, to make the body survive, to make the body work, function. That means what? The body belongs to the world. Meaning Prakriti. Mind also is like that. Similarly, the contents of the mind also are really the product of Maya, the world, the Prakriti, the creation. But what makes this ego hold on to these things and stay claim to authorship is the ego secretly derives a certain pleasure. That is why ego holds on to all these intrinsic occurrences. This is the secret pleasure that the ego derives. In happiness, anyway it derives. In pleasurable moments, anyway it derives. Even in misery, in sorrow, in suffering, in insult, in victimizing oneself, it has that secret pleasure. Because it is my suffering, it is my misery, it is my insult, I am being victimized. So it goes on experiencing that secret pleasure. It extracts the juice of internal secretive pleasure. There is that gratification which it derives. That is why it holds on to all these things. So, what we have to do is, we have to let go of these opinions. Once we let go of these opinions, with the clear understanding that the locus of the happiness is always within, the joy and happiness are actually from within. Even when the pleasure is gained because of the senses contacting sense objects, the actual source of all that is within. Even this ego, when it is deriving secret pleasure out of its claims and then identification with all these things, the source of actual pleasure is inside. Once this is clearly understood that the source of all pleasure, all joy, all happiness is inside, then we don't give importance to the ego and as well as these claims of the ego and the things that are belonging to the authorship of the ego. Then whenever the intrinsic occurrences are there, because of this deep practice, we will start letting go of the opinions. Unless and until we do this, it is not easy for us to get out of the bondages of the samsara. Like that, there are programmed structures inside us. You have to get out of all these programmed structures. We are caught in the net and network of these mentally programmed structures. And the attempt of the Dasasloki and as well as the attempt of the Siddhanta Bindu by Madhusudana Saraswati and then Siddhanta Sindhu by Ramaraya Kavi is mainly focused for this one end. That we need to give less importance to the ego, the various things that it holds on to, the opinions, and related thinking patterns. We need to give totally less importance and finally let them go completely. This is very important. And the technique of dissolving these opinions, the desires, these mentally programmed structures, which are called as positionalities, is now being explained in the Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Sara Sangraha by Adi Shankaracharya ji himself. Naham deho Napya Surnakshavargaha Napya Surnakshavargaha Antastesham chapi tadvikriyam sakshi nityah pratyayevahasmi sakshi nityah pratyayevahasmi naham deho napya surnakshavargaha Antastesham chapi tadvikriyam sakshi nityah pratyayevahasmi sakshi nityah pratyayevahasmi naham deho. We should start off internally with this beautiful practice, disowning the very body which is very, very dear to us. As we have already seen that the body and various other things, mind, senses and other things which actually belong to this category have been mistakenly taken in by us as those belonging to the I category. That is why we are undergoing all this. So what we have to do now? So we have to take them out of this category and put them back into their deserving category. So, Naham Deho Napya Surnakshavargaha. I am not the body. Na Api Asuru. I am not the pranas. Na Akshavargaha. I am not the group of Indriyas. I am not the body. I am not the so-called pranas. Because you have already seen that so many views of philosophy which said self means body, self means sense organ, self means pranas, and up to finally even talking about the Chendra Vijnana, then Shunyavada, and then finally saying that the Atma is conscious also, unconscious also, Bhokta also, doer also, getting into the Vaisheshikas, Bhattas, Nayayikas, Sankhyans, all that we have seen already in the introduction to the first sloka, and then afterward we have taken the first sloka as per the Madhusudana Saraswati and as well as Ramaraya Kavi. So now this is in line with that. Even though it is in a different text, it is in line with that. I am not the body. I am not these pranas. I am not the collection of these indriyas. Nahankaro, no mano, na vibuddhihi, nahankaro. Here, a specific interpretation is there. I am not the thought of excessive pride and arrogance of the ego. Simply I can say I am not the ahankara, but I am not the thought of excessive pride and arrogance of the ego. Because we were talking about the positionality, where the opinion is a vanity, meaning we have excessive pride in it. And then this mentally programmed structure. So in relation to that, when we look at this thought, this spiritual practical contemplation, the reflection inside, the contemplative reflection that I am not the thought of excessive pride and arrogance of the ego. How many times we get identified with this? We do not know how we behave, with whom we are behaving. Because when the ego becomes very arrogant, identified with its arrogance, with its pride, what all it says, what all it talks, how it behaves, it is unmindful of all these behavioral patterns, even when others tell, even when others point out. It reacts, it fights, it defends. It enters into a conflict, struggle, condemning, criticizing, blaming, because it doesn't accept that. Because it owns so much, it has invested so much in these things. That is why ego invests so much in this pride, excessive pride, so much in this arrogance, because it becomes one with it. It doesn't say that it is arrogance separate, it is pride separate, it identifies with it so much. That is why it is said, I am not the thought of excessive pride and arrogance of the ego. Whenever the world presents itself to us in a testing manner, in a conflicting manner, contradicting manner, immediately what reacts is this only. What do they think? Why this is happening? How can they do like that? How can they say that? Whatever it is. That means what? This pride and this arrogance of the ego are taking control of the thought process. At that time, if you bring in this, even when they are getting hurt also, even when the ego is getting pricked also, getting thrashed also, even at that time, I am not the excessive, or I am not the thought of the excessive pride and arrogance of the ego. I am not the thought of excessive pride, I am not the thought of excessive arrogance of the ego. I am not. It is more analytical. Rather than saying I am not the ego, I am not the thought of the excessive pride of the ego, arrogance of the ego. Nahankaro no mano na vibuddhi. Then I am not a doubtful thought of the mind. There are so many doubts in the mind. In fact, these doubts are on oneself also, one's capacities also, on others also, on the scripture also, on the guru also, on the God also, existence of God also. So there are doubts on everything and everybody, including oneself. That is why our masters bring in the aspect of Shraddha. Belief, trust, faith, all these things. So, I am not the doubtful thought of the mind. Because these doubtful thoughts of the mind will create more doubts on the scriptural advices only. Should I practice? If I practice, will it really happen? If I reflect, will there be any benefit? If I contemplate, do you think I am really going to improve? Who can improve me? These doubts can happen, which hamper and hinder our spiritual, even at least little progress also. So that is why I am not the doubtful thoughts of the mind. And sometimes intellect also, it will become very decisive. Sometimes based on wrong values also. Right values is fine. But even then, still it is a product of Maya. So here it is said, I am not the decisive thought of the intellect. Antastesham chapi tad vikriyana sakshi nityah pratyageva asmi. I am the illuminator of, I am the seer of the body, the senses and their dharmas such as birth and death. I am the seer of body, senses, etc. I am the illuminator of all these things and their dharmas. I am Nitya, I am the eternal one, and I am other than this Anruta, Jada, Dukkha Rupa Panchakoshas. The 5 sheets which are of the form of misery, which are inert and which are not true. I am other than, I am different from these 5 koshas. And I am the Satchidananda Parabrahma Swarupam. Sakshi Nitya Pratyageva Amasmi. I am the Satchidananda Parabrahma Swarupam. I am the reality, I am the consciousness, I am the blissful, pure consciousness. I am of the nature of pure consciousness, which is the reality, the consciousness, and blissful, which is of the nature of all these things. So I am that Satchidananda Parabrahma Swarupa. When I can contemplate inside myself in this manner, slowly, we come out of the identification and involvement with these mentally programmed structures called as positionalities, from where the opinions stem forth, and this ego starts claiming all these things. Whatever intrinsic happenings are there, we get distance. We understand that we are not the authors, we are not the originators, we are not the creators, nor we are the owners. They are just happening without our any involvement. Maya makes all these things happen, and they are happening. All that I am supposed to do is to recognize that they are happenings where I don't have any authorship. When I don't have any authorship, I don't have doership, I need not have any enjoyership. They are just there happening. In this way we can start looking at it, then opinions can come, whatever things are, how many people, all the conflicts, all the fighting, all the differences, all the problems are because of these opinions. So people think opinions are real, people think opinions are important, people think opinions are the most required things. Hold on to the opinion, fight. And Swami Chinmayananda used to say, these opinions do not have hands and legs. The opinions can't fight. So these people who have hands and legs fight because of the opinions. Actually, these opinions, conflict of opinions, which manifests as conflict at the physical level also. So if that is dissolved there, if the ego is not allowed to claim, or simply we watch, observe, at least we understand intellectually and start contemplating in this manner. Naham deho napyasur nakshavarga nahankaro nomano nabibuddhi antastesham chapitat vikriyanam sakshi nitya pratyageva amasmi sakshi nitya pratyageva amasmi. Anywhere we are contemplating, I am the ego, I am the mind, I am suffering, I am having problems, I am stressed, I am tired, I am fatigued, I am exhausted, I am disturbed, I am frustrated. Instead of all that, I am that pure consciousness. Maybe for time pass, doesn't matter, do the better time pass. Maybe benefit without, maybe for fun, what does it matter? We can have this divine fun, spiritual fun. And then slowly contemplate in this manner, then these internally programmed and mentally programmed structures will become loose, will start loosening their hold on us. Then we can come out of all these things. That is why all these satsangs will help us to loosen them and come out of these opinions. Because we think they are mine, they are real, they are very important, they are precious, they are worthy, which none of these things belong to opinions. They are mere mental activity which have no significance. No worthless mental activity. Only when we claim them as mine and we start giving value and importance. We disclaim. Sometimes in the newspapers we find these disclaimers. We are not responsible for if you enter into a transaction with certain thing. We don't. Disclaimer. That is all. For that disclaimer announcement, we need a lawyer and then the beautiful draft and all that. Already this drafting is there. Disclaimers are there. I have mental disclaimers inside. Anyway, we also use them whenever we are cornered, whenever we are caught, whenever we don't want to accept it. We state the disclaimers only. I don't know. I didn't say. 2 minutes before, that fellow would have told the TV channel the same thing. Next minute, another TV channel. I never said. When did I say? You interpreted it like that. You heard it like that. Oh, I have a recorder, sir. It must have recorded it like that. Somebody must have tampered with this recording like that. Because when officials only start tampering because of the governmental pressure, well, everybody can his wife, today someone flipped my purse, my wallet from the pocket. Someone flipped it. Then the wife said, did you not know when someone placed his hand in your pocket? And this man says, I thought it is my hand. No, this is the part. I thought it is my hand. Then what can you do? If you think that it is your hand which is taking the purse out, when it is the hand of the thief which took it out, meaning what? This is what it is. What is not my hand, I think it is my hand. But in the process, what is happening? I lose my money. What is not mine, when I think it is mine, the mind, intellect, memory, ego, their contents, I lose my peace, my stability, my spirituality. I am at loss. What is not mine should be clearly understood and contemplated as not mine, because it has got deep into my programs that it is mine. So we have to deprogram and reprogram. One boy was talking to his girlfriend. I will marry a girl who is an expert homemaker, and who is simple, down to earth, simple. Expert homemaker, down to earth, simple in behavior, in talking, in looks, in dress, in everything. And a good book. Expert homemaker, down to earth, simple, and a good book. I will marry such a girl. And the girlfriend said, my housemaid has all these qualities. You better marry her. Each individual's choice is different. But everybody has to consider that being a good homemaker and then being simple and being a good book are important, necessary qualities of a girl or a wife. It depends upon their choice. Each person has one's own selected choices which are based on opinions, which are actually a mental activity. There was a difference of opinion between husband and wife, and then wife was shouting at husband. And husband said, why are you shouting like a fool? Then the wife said, only then fools understand. But to make the fool understand, she has to shout like a fool. But here, we have already become that. So, the great masters are giving us these beautiful pointers so that we can come out of these clutches of these opinions and being a slave to these mentally programmed structures, so that we can slowly get out of this network. Then, now continuing with the point number 26 in Siddhanta Bindu by Madhusudana Saraswati. Tatra hetum aha anaikantikatvat iti vyabhicharitvat vinashitvat iti yavat. In continuation with what we have seen yesterday, because they, meaning the body, the mind, the senses, are variable. They are always changing. The body is changing, mind is changing, senses are changing, they are variable, they are always changing. So perishable. They are perishable. How? Because they are variable. They are constantly changing. So they are perishable. And the self, the Atma which is there, it cannot have either antecedent non-existence, meaning non-existence before origination, or annihilative non-existence, meaning non-existence after destruction. The body, the mind, senses all have these things. Because before they are born, they are not there. After they die and go away, get destroyed, they will not be there. But as far as Atma is concerned, it cannot have anything like that. Because the self is not limited by space, time and objectivity. Yesterday we saw all the opinions, views, starting from Charvaka to the Sankhya's, how Ramaraya Kavi told us each thing he took up and said, this is limited by time, space, objectivity. Desha, Kala, Vastu, Paricheda, Adhyada. So, here it is said, the self alone is not limited by space and time, and has therefore neither origination nor destruction, because it is eternal. The self is eternal. It has neither origination nor destruction. And then it is said, even though the self in all the bodies is only one, because it is not limited by time, it is not limited by space, it is not limited by objectivity. Desha, Kala, Vastu, Paricheda are not there. So that means what? The self in all bodies is only one. So then it is quite logical that somebody may think there might be mixing up of joys and sorrows. If there is only one self in all the people, then their joys might become my joys, my sorrows might go there. Good only, my sorrows go there, but whatever it is, but their sorrows also may come to me. So their sorrows and joys become my joys. They are mixing up. किसी का किसी को चले जाएगा. Like that sometimes when the internet fails or the network fails or when there is something problem there, networking problem in these reservations and all, everything gets jammed, nothing works, and sometimes somebody else it goes to somebody else. These things are happening. So it may happen like that because if there is one self in all the bodies, then it is said, see, it cannot happen like that. Because the locus of these joys and sorrows is the mind. And it is accepted that the mind is different for each individual. Each individual jiva has got peculiar mindset which is different from the other. The difference is there because of these differences in mindsets. But who created such a difference in mind? So much of difference from each individual. They have got our contribution to further those things which are there. So how I think is different from how you think and what you think, how I behave. Everybody is different. In the same family, in the same living under the same roof also, everybody is different. Unless until there is a common ideal or common bond of love or a common working project or goal, there will be differences. There is no mindsets are. So it is said here that it is not possible for an entity to know its own non-existence, since the knower and his non-existence cannot be there at the same time. The main idea which is being said here is the Atma or the self, which is existence itself, is present everywhere, and there can be no non-existence for it. Absolutely there can be no non-existence for the self. Self is ever existent. And in one of these philosophical views expressed, they said that self is not eternal, the self is not ever existent, self is also that which comes and goes. Then they said, if self also is like that, then what will happen to the actions done? So there will be some confusion regarding the action. If the self has origination and destruction, there will be loss of fruits of actions performed and the experiencing of result without corresponding actions. So I do some actions, I don't experience the result. And somebody does the action, it comes to me. That is why there should be a continuity. So that is why it is very clear that the self, which is existence itself, is present everywhere. And then continuing further. Dvaitasya Mithyatvena Adhisthana Sattat Atmabhyapannataya Eva Siddhatvat Shukti Rajatadivat Adhyastasya Adhisthana Tadamya Abhavan Upapattehe duality is not real, since duality is mithya, it has existence only because of it having attained identification with the reality of the substratum. Duality is mithya, it is very clear. But it has got existence only because it has attained identification with the reality of the substratum. Substratum is real, the adhisthana is real. So it has got identification with that reality, so it is having existence. And the example taken here is, as in the case of the nacre and silver, the shuktika and rajatam, the pearl shell or seashell and silver that is seen in it. In that case also, the substratum is the nacre and that which is mithya or an appearance is the silver. In fact, it is not silver, but it appears like silver. So it is illogical to say that there is absence of identification of superimposing with the substratum. Even in this example also, even there where we are seeing silver in the pearl shell or the seashell, actually it is in superimposition. We are seeing it. Even there is identification of the superimposed with the substratum. That silver is identified with the substratum. So the world of duality, which is not real from the absolute standpoint, appears to be real only because of its identification with the substratum, which is Brahman, which is real. Because the world from the absolute standpoint is unreal, but it appears to be real. It appears to have that existence only because of its identification with that reality, which is Brahman, which is pure consciousness, which alone is real. So a piece of nacre is mistaken for silver only because the superimposed silver is identified with the substratum, which is the nacre. The silver is not real, only nacre exists. Nacre is real, silver is not real. But without the substratum, nacre, the silver would not appear at all. Silver appears because of the nacre, of that substratum. Similarly, even though the world is not absolutely real from the absolute standpoint, it is only mithya, it is only superimposition. It appears to have the status of reality only because we are ignorant one thing. Second thing is because it is identified with that which is real, which alone is real, that is pure Brahmanic consciousness. Continuing further. Tena atma na abhava pratiyogi abhava pratiyogi nascha dehendriyadayah. Therefore, it is said the Atma is not the counter correlative of non-existence. See, the body, mind and senses which are there, they are counter correlatives of non-existence. Pratyogi and then abhava pratyogi. See, the body is there. Actually, the body, mind and senses are indeterminable as real or unreal. That is why they are called as mithya. And this mithya is because of nescience. Mithya is because of nescience on the pure self. That means the ignorance on the pure self, which is self-luminous, pure consciousness. Even though it is one without a second, we come to see all these things because of this nescience. Now here, a little bit of explanation of what we have already seen. Pratyogi means counter correlative. When it is said that an object is a counter correlative of itself, see, when there is a pot, the pot is not at other place. It is only at a particular place. If there is a pot here, if there is this desk here, this desk is not present at other place and in another period of time. Meaning this is present here only. It is absent at some other place. It is absent at a different period of time. That is why whatever is there, which is present only in this particular place and then not present at any other place and at any other period of time, it it is said to be the counter correlative of its non-existence. Only if it can be non-existent at some other time or place. So you and I are here. We are non-existent at our home. Definitely. And definitely after some time we will be non-existent at all, totally. So any object in this manner is non-existent at some other place and some other time. Then only it can be said as it is a counter correlative of its non-existence. The whole world, including our own bodies, are all occupying only limited space and they are non-existent elsewhere. They are only here, they are not elsewhere. All things are non-existent or were non-existent before they came into existence. And all things will not be existent when they get destroyed, when they get into destruction or other destructions. So all things are non-existent at some time and in some place. That is why they are called as counter correlatives of their non-existence. But self is not like that. Self exists here also, there also, now also, then also, past also, future also, in all periods of time, at all places, in all things. It is everywhere, in everything, at every place, in every period of time. In fact, time only takes birth in it. So, self cannot be counter correlative of its non-existence because it is not limited in space or time. So what is real is only the pure consciousness. And what is not real, what is unreal, or what is mithya, what is superimposed is the world. Similarly, inside, what is real is pratyagata. And what is superimposed is mind, intellect, memory, ego, their structures, their programs, their thoughts, the contents, the network, everything, the doership, the enjoyership, the happiness, the misery, all that is superimposed. At the totality level it is Brahman, at the individual level it is Pratyagata, which is actually not different from Brahman. So what is real has to be given importance to, and what is superimposed has to be not given that much of importance. Or we have to understand that this is the truth about it. And moreover, it is also said by Ramaraya Kavi in Siddhanta Sindhu that samsara is superimposed in Brahman and does not vanish just because we study Upanishads. Suppose we study Upanishad and then look at the world. Gaya! Pointe! It's gone! There is some advertisement like that. You apply that ointment, gone! Upanishad, gone! It is not like that. So Ramaraya Kavi says, just because we study Upanishad, it doesn't vanish. It gets destroyed only the aparoksha jnana, the immediate knowledge. Or in other words, to make it very simple, by Brahma Sakshatkara alone, this will happen. See, Dvaitam and Dvaita Jnana, Ramaraya Kavi says, do not affect the Advaita Atma in Atma Jnana Dasha. In that Atma Jnana Dasha, when an individual experiences that Atma Jnana, Dvaitam and Dvaita Jnana, whatever the mind has got till then, the Dvaita Jnana and Dvaitam, it will not affect the Advaita Atma. Dvaitam vanishes. Dvaitam totally vanishes. And after that, suppose somebody has gone through that and experienced that Atma Tattva and Atma Jnana, because that alone is real, and then what is unreal definitely has to vanish. At least when we get the understanding, the conviction, and then supported by that experience inside, then thereafter that individual functions. Will that individual be influenced by the Dvaita Jnana? Then here it is said that individual's ego who has experienced this Atma Jnana, but still that individual is living, and this living individual is called as the Jivan Mukta, who has not yet got the Videha Mukti. The body is still there because of some prarabdha is there. All other karmas can be negated, but still prarabdha karma functions so that Mahatma continues to live to bless the world, whatever it is. But for our analysis here, the ego of that person who has gained the Atma Jnana is like a cloth that is burned in fire. Sometimes the cloth is there, stiff cloth might be there, it is burnt in fire, but the cloth shape remains as it is. Sometimes things that are burnt in fire, the shape remains same. Only when you it will collapse. Gloria, it will collapse. But till then it will remain same. It will remain. But will it be, is it actually there? It is only the shape is there. But the content is burned down by the fire. Like that the ego might be there because the Mahatma might use this antakarana to respond to the world, to interact with the world. But that is like a burnt piece of cloth, which is burned by this Atma Jnana. It is not there. If it is burned by that Atma Jnana and then it is not effective, it has become redundant, it is non-existent even though it apparently appears to exist, that is how it will be. Actually also it is apparent existence only, it is not a real existence, it is not a Paramarthika Sattva. At all. So, in the people of Atma Sakshatkara or realization, ego may appear, but it is like a burned cloth. And somebody asked a question to a master. Many times people give the example of seeing the snake on the rope. Many times. And sometimes it so happened that even the speaker who spoke about the rope and snake example was going back to his home after satsang, and in that dim light he saw rope. He was frightened. And one of the listeners from the talk also was there, and that fellow told him, "Oh teacher, it is not a snake, it is only a rope." And then only the teacher could see, oh God, what I taught to that fellow, that he is teaching me now in practical reality. Because teaching is different and real life experience is different. Reading is different, real life experience is different. Participating in study group is different, really living those principles is different. So, the important thing here is, when such a person also sees a snake, because this ego is not a real ego anymore, even that person, he might look at it suddenly because of some mistaken identity. He might just look at it and may get a little bit of surprise and a little bit of very minute trace of fear. Maybe possible. But actually when he is totally deeply rooted in it, such a thing is not possible. But for some people, they might have experiences which are not continuously there. Their experiences might keep coming and going. For such a person also, you might see, but that fear will not be intense, nor will it be actually affecting that individual because there is no more identification with this instrument called as the internal organ or antakarana. So that is where Ramarai Kavi says, in Brahmajnanis, that is ineffective. In deep sleep, it is ineffective. Even in the waking world and in the dream world, it appears to be effective. The internal organ is only because of our identification with it. And that has got its status also to appear to be effective because of its superimposition upon that which is real, and that which is real is eliminating it, so that gets that status of appearing to be real. So, coming back to the example, Ramaraya Kavi in Siddhanta Sindhu also says, silver on nacre is only an appearance. Silver on nacre is only an appearance. In Suptika Rajata example, the silver is an appearance. But the world in Brahman is also experienced in transactions. We see it in transactions, it is not mere appearance. In Advaitic state, it is an appearance. But in transaction world, it is there, we are seeing this world. So, even for men of the realization, the experience of samsara is unavoidable. Because in transactional state, in the world of transaction, Vyavaharika Satta, when they are in Vyavahara, even for a realized person, they have to see, Guru is realized, the Sishya is stupid, so he has to teach that stupid Sishya, so he has to go on teaching, he doesn't listen, then he will tell again, he doesn't listen, then he will tell again. Sometimes he has to use anger also, which is really not there, but he will show the anger and use it. So he has to have the transactions, what can we do? So, that is why the world is called Paramarthika Mithya. From absolute standpoint it is Mithya, and from Vyavaharika standpoint it is Satyam. Paramarthika Mithya and Vyavaharika Satyam, says Ramaraya. So men of realization still said by Ramaraya Kavi. In Bhranti, there is no necessity that the real object has to be experienced, because somebody in Puropaksha raised an objection, and because of that he is clarifying. Silver on nacre is not real, and he says it is not real, because in dream, because of some mental disturbance, sometimes people, not only in dream but in the waking world also, sometimes people start seeing some swords and knives and weapons because of some faulty state of mind. They are not there, but they are seeing, the experience is there. And sometimes for people, there is a pichacha bhranti. Meaning what? In darkness, they think there is some pichacha. And did anybody see that pichacha earlier? They didn't see. You can't say that you will see only, you will get frightened by those things only when you have previous experience. Because not there, but we have seen it. We think that the pichacha is there until somebody comes and says, it is your uncle waiting for you. Oh mama, why you appeared like a pichacha? You ask mother-in-law, she will tell he is a pichacha. Whatever it is. So, then it is said here that pichacha bhranti, we did not see any pichachi earlier. Even in bhranti gnana, avidya kalpita world can enter. So, in bhranti gnana, things need not be real. That avidya kalpana can enter. Even there also. So, the nacre in avidya fabricates silver. And the Atman, because of avidya, fashions, fabricates, imagines the world. So that world is a kalpana. Kalpana means a fabrication or concoction, fiction, invention, imagination. Depending upon that relative context, we can understand it. It's a fabrication. It is a concoction, fiction, imagination. That is all. It's not a reality. Maya has the capacity to fabricate, to imagine anything. That is what is Maya, the Vikshepa Shakti. So, but for the fabrication, it seeks a suitable support. And here, very interestingly says, for the silver to be fashioned, it selects a suitable support, the nacre. It has to have some relativity. Something, it should suit to that projection. So, for the rope, for the snake, it selects the rope. It should suit, it's not. For snake, it can't select a stone. It has to be a garland at least, or a crack in the earth, or a stick, or crack in the earth, or garland, or a rope can appear like snake. It has to select a suitable thing. It can't select a non-suitable thing. So Maya has that, it selects even for the Brahma, also Bhranti Gnana also. But selects a suitable form for this appearance. Since Atma has no form, since the Chaitanya Swarupa Atma has no actual form, Atma is Nirakara, hence any kind of imagination or all kinds of imaginations are possible by Maya. Anything can be superimposed on Atma because it is suitable for anything, no form, and it is substantive, anything can be superimposed. So, many kinds of fabrications and imaginations are possible. So that is why the worlds and worlds and worlds are created. And in that so many things are created. And in that internal organ, so many things will be created. So many superimpositions, so many projections, so many things. Everything is possible. That is why Akadita Gatana Patiyasi Maya says Adisika. The impossible is made possible. For it is Maya. That is what is Maya. So even though avidya is jada, inert, like our internal organ, due to the power of pratyagatma, the internal organ works. Similarly, due to the power of pure consciousness, the avidya also works. We have already seen that pratyagatma is inside, that pratyagatma sends its power into the internal organ like the magnet sending its power into a needle and moving the needle. So similarly, the Pratyagatma sends its power into the internal organ and it starts moving, the thoughts start moving, internal organ starts moving. So it is all because of that power. Similarly, because of the power of pure consciousness, avidya starts functioning, maya starts functioning. And because of the power of Bhagavan only, the maya can effectively create all the impossible things. Show what cannot be shown also, according to ordinary mind, it can show anywhere in the Atma Tattva. So, it is said for Ramaraya Kali, continuing further says, for knowing the Atma Swarupa, three pramanas are required: Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhava. But when it is the question of an atheist, the atheist will never believe Shruti Pramana. And Yukti keeps changing because the values in Buddhi keep changing, understanding in Buddhi keeps changing. And Anubhava happens with people only in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. How can everybody get the Nirvikalpa Samadhi Anubhava? If I am an atheist, I will not believe Shruti. You should Shruti Pramana. Pramana for you, money, what, nothing. Trash. And Yukti keeps changing. And Anubhava only in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And that will happen only for 1 in 10 million. Now, what to do? That is why Ramaraya will say, the best thing is, take the example of the deep sleep which you undergo every day. That is why deep sleep facilitates the opportunity to recognize the presence of Atman. That is why we have already analyzed in the introduction itself. By taking the help of Siddhanta Bindu and Siddhanta Sindhu, we have already analyzed that in deep sleep, body is not functioning actually. You know, the mechanical functions are there, the mind is absent, senses are absent, ego is absent, sense objects are absent. Then who undergoes the experience that I slept happily and I don't know? I don't know, he is of the Jiva, who is covered by, who is Avrita because of avidya. But I slept happily. The experiencer actually is Pratyagatma. The Pratyagatma's power only is there in the Antakarna. So after waking up, the Pratyagatma says, I was there, you were not there, I was there. So I was the one who experienced this. So who is that Atma alone is when all these things are not there? So in deep sleep, every day we see that everything goes into ignorance except that which is not ignorant, that which is beyond ignorance, that which is untouched by ignorance, that is Pratyagatma, the innermost self. One person was listening to the poetry of a poet, and the poet said, looking at the person, did you enjoy listening to my poem, my poetry? And that man said, yes, I enjoyed, especially the end portion of it I enjoyed quite a lot. That man said, which part of the end exactly you enjoyed, can you tell me? And that man said, the last sentence where you said the recitation is finally over. That I enjoyed. Because it was constant monotony and it was going on, so he had to stay. Because he is his friend, so he stayed. And then enjoyed the last sentence. Last portion, it is over, I enjoyed it. So similarly, with this spiritual knowledge, we can say that we will also enjoy the last portion, that ego's domination on the over. Once a father asked his son, after coming back from the examination, what was the first question asked in your examination? And the son said, the first question was like this, what is the thing which you hate the most, dislike the most? What is that thing? And then the father asked, what did you answer? The son said, I just took out the question paper and pasted it there. That is the thing which I hate the most. The question is asked, answering is his choice. So he stuck to that question paper. But the examiner has to give answer, has to give marks. It is his choice. It is not defined there. What is that which you hate most according to this text, according to that lesson, according to this understanding? No. What is that which you hate most? He he ate the question paper. In fact, he do full mark because he ate all questions. Whatever it is. So, the ego, as we have seen already, is not overcome by hatred or condemnation or enmity, but it is overcome only by understanding the mechanism how it works. The ego goes on taking claims after claims after claims. But we have to understand clearly. So that understanding is very important. So, as it was said earlier, that deep sleep provides a nice opportunity. There is the one who experiences the happiness in deep sleep. That is the way Radharani says, after waking up, he announces his happiness. And that experiencer is Atma. And it is also said there, though the self exists in all three states, Jagrata Avastha, Swapna Avastha, Sushupta Avastha, it cannot be known by itself in the waking and dream states because of the presence of limiting adjuncts, because of the presence of upadhis which are there. What are these upadhis? In the form of mind and senses. But in deep sleep, these upadhis or limiting adjuncts are not there and only the self exists. That is why there is an opportunity for us to know the presence of the Atma, because none of these upadhis which otherwise cover it, which otherwise completely surround it, are non-existent, are absent. So, continuing further, it is said when a person says, I know this, who is the witness there? It is the self who is the witness of his knowledge. I know this. And when a person says, I don't know this, then also the self is again the witness, is absence of the knowledge. Only a single changeless entity can be a witness of the so-called I know and the so-called I don't know. Meaning, when I say I don't know, I know that I don't know. At least that I know, that I don't know. That's what I say when somebody asks something, I don't know. Are you sure? Yes, I don't know. Meaning what I know, that I don't know. So who is that who knows that you don't know? Mind says I don't know, but it is that self which witnesses my knowledge also and my ignorance also. That is the witness for all that. So that is one single changeless entity. And in order to make it more elaborate, it is said in the Siddhanta Bindu that there are two kinds of knowledge. One is eternal knowledge and another one is particular knowledge. Eternal knowledge is of the self or pure consciousness. It is that eternal knowledge, a jnana of the Atma or Shuddha Chaitanya, Brahma Swarupa Shuddha Chaitanya. Then the particular knowledge which arises when the mind stretches out through the appropriate sense organ and takes the shape of a particular object, meaning it becomes a vritti. The mind takes the shape of a vritti, and this knowledge is called as vritti jnana, and this has a beginning and an end. The mind goes out through the sense organ, meets the sense object, takes the shape of a sense organ. This is called a particular knowledge. It has got a beginning and it has got an end. In deep sleep, pure consciousness is the witness of the absence of the knower of a particular knowledge. Who is the knower of a particular knowledge? It is the jiva, it is the ego, it is the mind, intellect, memory, ego mechanism, which is the knower of a particular knowledge. Where the mind goes out to the senses and takes the shape of a sense object, and it knows what that sense object is. It knows what that external object is. That is the knower of a particular knowledge. The knower of the particular knowledge is absent in deep sleep. And then who knows that knowledge? That I am happy in sleep. If the knower of the particular knowledge is asleep, who is the one who knows this happiness in sleep? It is the knower of the eternal knowledge. It is that eternal, it is that witnessing consciousness. It is that eternal knowledge which knows it. It is that pure consciousness which knows it. So that is what is the Pratyagatma, which knows that there is happiness in sleep. So we have understood that for experiencing happiness on the very first day, I think we have understood this. For the experience of happiness, there is no need for body, no need for mind, no need for senses. Because in deep sleep, we are happy without all of them. And foolishly we hold on to them and run around chasing all other things through them. So that also helps in that way. Then there are few authoritative statements given in Siddhanta Siddhanta Bindu by Madhusudana Saraswati, which says that the self is witness of everything. Tameva Bhantam Anubhati Sarvam Tasya Bhasa Sarvaminam Vibhati. From the Kathopanishad, everything shines because of he is shining. Because he is self-luminous and he is shining, and because of he is shining, everything else shines. Because of his shining effulgence, all these shine variously. All these things, the sun, the moon, the stars, the fire, everything shines because of his shining effulgence. And then, na drishte drashtaram pasye. From the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, you cannot see the seer of the sight. The seer of the sight, you cannot see with the eyes, with the indriyas, with the mind. The one who is the seer of all these things. So the seer is only possible to be experienced for the fraction of a second in the Sakshatkara Vritti. Even afterward it disappears and you only have the direct realization. So that also is there. The next step, Nanyadosti Drashta. From the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is no seer other than him. Is there anybody other seer? There only one seer is there. There is no other seer other than him. And it is said by these lofty authoritative statements in Vedanta, it is said, taking from the Shruti, the Pramana, that the self alone is the witness of everything. Tasya eva sarva sakshitvena abhishiktatvat. Abhishiktatvat, meaning what? It is anointed that the self is the witness of everything. And in Sushupti, there is no Pramata, there is no Pramiti, there is no Pramana, there is no Prameya. Pramata, we have already seen them, but in briefly, Pramata means the individual, Pramana means the vritti of the mind, Pramiti means the knowledge, Prameya means the object which we are trying to gain. All these things are not there. The individual is not there, the vritti of the mind is not there, the so-called knowledge which reflects inside, which is called as Pramiti, is not there, and Prameyam, that Vishaya, is also not there. But even though these four are not there, that who knows that these four are not there is that Sakshi or the witness. And the Apurva Paksha said, oh, even this witness is not there. Sometimes that objection, people who raise objection talk like that. So it is said here that Ramaraya questions, that person says, if you say that witness also is not there, then who is the one who knows that these four are not there? So that is impossible to say that these four are not there. Hence one has to agree that the Atma exists. Atma exists, so Atma alone exists. So that which exists, when all these so-called various other things are not there, Atma alone exists. So we have to give total attention to that Atma which exists always. It is for that purpose we are trying to get into Dasasloki and also taking the example of Siddhanta Bindu of Madhusudana Saraswati and Siddhanta Sindhu of Ramaraya. Om Vagishwaraya Vidmahe Hayagrivaya Dhimahi Tanno Hayagriva Prachodayat. Om Akshareshwaraya Vidmahe Mantrarajaya Dhimahi Tanno Hayagriva Prachodayat. Hayagriva स्वरूपाय चिन्मयानन्दरूपिणे तुभ्यं नमो हयग्रीव विद्याराजाय विष्णवे स्वाहा हंसस्सोऽहम् ॐ श्रीं ह्लौं ॐ नमो भगवते हयग्रीवाय विष्णवे मह्यं मेधां प्रज्ञां प्रयच्छ स्वाहा प्रयच्छ स्वाहा हयग्रीवमङ्गलम् हयग्रीवमङ्गलम् विष्णवे मङ्गलम् विष्णवे मङ्गलम् विद्याराजमङ्गलम् विद्याराजमङ्गलम् विष्णवे मङ्गलम् विष्णवे मङ्गलम् विद्याराजमङ्गलम् विष्णवे मङ्गलम् हयवदनामङ्गलम् हयवदनामङ्गलम् विष्णवे मङ्गलम् हयग्रीवमङ्गलम् 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 सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः श्री परमात्मने नमः श्री परब्रह्मणे नमः हरिः ॐ